Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been angry at your electric company? I mean, really, have you ever felt like a victim, helpless in the face of ever increasing power bills and unable to exert even the slightest pressure or leverage against them? I mean, really, what choice do we have? You need to have electric service. Everything we use requires electricity. Our laptops, our phones, cars, lights, television, our refrigerator, literally everything. It's just a ridiculous scam that's being forced on you, me, and everyone else in America. You have to be hooked up to the power grid and have service or you can't live in your own home. Whatever happened to the idea of freedom? Is it me or did people live for thousands of years without electric power? Not that I'm suggesting that people should live without electricity. However, the current system is clearly just a way to drain money from each and every American. And if that isn't bad enough, does the electric company ever have to reimburse you for your time or trouble or losses when they are unable to deliver power to your home? Have you ever gotten a credit on your bill for the 5 hours the power is out during a thunderstorm or the days it was out after the tornado or hurricane or superstorm hit your area? Bad chance. It has never happened. And still, we just have to eat it. Month after month, price hike after price hike, power outage after power outage. You just have to grin and bear it, and you can't even go to another power company because each and every company has a monopoly in the areas they service. It makes you wonder who they paid off to get that sweet deal they have. But now you can get out from under their thumb, and you can even force them to pay you. Finally, after years of being abused and forced to buy from the local power company, you can now turn the tables on them and use a small loophole in the law to extract money from them. I discovered this loophole and how to take advantage of it after I got so mad at my local power provider that I literally threw a temper tantrum in my front yard. And yeah, I was embarrassed when I did it, and I realized that my neighbors had likely seen me, but more importantly, I was motivated to find a way to fight back. And I'll tell you all about it in just a moment. But first, let me introduce myself and why you should listen to each and every word I say. My name is Richard, and until I had my temper tantrum, I was just an ordinary guy. I was and am married to the most amazing woman, Emily. We have 2 children and a dog, and I worked at an accounting firm from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and my wife worked in banking. By all accounts, I was the average, everyday, middle-class, white-collar schmo. I made a nice living, had a solid retirement account, and spent my weekends relaxing around the house and camping with my family. You know, there are some things that really aggravated me. Now, I'm not an overly political guy, but the ever-increasing encroachment of the federal government into our lives made me mad. And I also don't trust technology too much either. Sure, I use it, but the fact that my computer seems to keep track of everything I do online really concerns me. But you know, these kinds of things were just a part of American life. And then in 2007, 2008, the unthinkable happened. The U.S. real estate market collapsed and took the worldwide economy with it. Businesses started collapsing at a record rate, and that included many of my employer's clients. And we had several accountants working at my firm, and when the clients started dropping off, we all started to get concerned. First, they reassigned the client list to keep everyone working. Finally, it was obvious we were just losing too many clients, so they started a rolling unpaid week off policy. Every employee would take an unpaid week off every 8th week. Now, you know, we all accepted it because we didn't want to see layoffs start, but it hurt. Still, clients continued to drop off, so they gave everyone an unpaid day off every other week, along with the rolling week off. Then an unpaid day off every week. I think they were hoping some people would resign, but everyone was too scared. We were, after all, accountants, not known for our impulsive decisions. So finally, they started laying people off. Now, I'd been on the job long enough and brought in enough clients that I didn't get sent home, as they say, but I was only getting paid for 4 days a week and had to take an entire week off every 8th week. That's a pretty significant cut in pay, and at the same time, my wife got laid off too. She had unemployment, of course, but that only replaced a small part of her salary. Over the next year and a half, it became obvious we were in trouble. Our retirement shrank to almost nothing with the stock market crash. Our house was over $150,000 underwater, and no matter how hard my wife tried, She couldn't find a new job. No one in banking was hiring. And all of this happened over a 12-month period. And at the same time, prices on virtually everything we bought were going up. Food prices were rising. Gas prices were on the way up. And if that weren't bad enough, that crooked power company kept asking the local utilities commission for rate hikes to cover the money they lost because of people cutting back on their usage. Let me say that again, okay? People would cut back on their electric usage because they couldn't afford the bill, and the power company would raise their rates to compensate. So basically, we would use less power and our bill wouldn't change that much. Now, when you're struggling to pay for a home and buy food, you've already cut off your cable and cell phone, and you turned a car in because you couldn't pay for it, and the electric company's answer to people using less of their product was to raise prices, well, let's just say I was getting kind of angry about it. Still, we had to deal with the situation in front of us, so we kept scraping together the money to pay. No more dinners out, and we waited until movies were released on DVD to watch them. It was also a little hard to explain to our children why we were shopping at discount stores and thrift stores, but we all adjusted. All in all, Emily and I knew we had it pretty good. Things were tough, but the economy would rebound and we'd be okay. We had to withdraw some money from our retirement accounts, which really hurt because we didn't get the benefit of the run back up in stocks, but at least we didn't lose our home to foreclosure. Then one day it happened. I get home from work and grab the mail. As I sat in the car flipping through the mail, I saw a letter from the power company. This was obviously not a bill. It was a letter. So I took a deep breath and I closed my eyes and I didn't even want to open it. I knew we had not bounced a check and the bill was paid on time. So I didn't know what was in the letter, but I had a bad feeling I wasn't going to like it. And boy, was that an understatement. I tore the envelope open and pulled out the letter, and I swear in my mind, it's like a slow motion movie. I unfolded the letter and started reading. The letter read, "Dear customer, as a result of deferred maintenance to our infrastructure and declining revenues, it had become necessary to assess each of our customers an emergency surcharge on your bill. Until further notice, your monthly bill will include an infrastructure surcharge." At that point, I stopped and crumbled the letter in my hand, and I got to tell you, I started tearing up in frustration, and then I was just shaking. Then I screamed at the top of my lungs. I swear, it was such a guttural scream, and I screamed so loud my throat started hurting. I screamed again, and I can still remember the vibration in my chest and the sharp pain in my throat. Then I grabbed the prepaid cell phone that we kept in the car for emergencies, and I dialed. The phone rang once, then twice. Then the automated attendant answered. I hit 0. The automated attendant asked what I was calling about. I hit 0. I need to know a little more to get you to the right. I hit 0. Please hold and I'll connect you to our next available representative. Now, the poor girl who answered the phone that evening got blasted. I started screaming at her as if she had made the decision herself. What in the hell are you pieces of shit doing adding a surcharge for deferred maintenance? That means you didn't take care of your infrastructure and now I have to pay more to fix it? I hopped out of my car and I started kicking my tire. You dirty son of a, how many executives work for that cheating company who make $300,000 or $400,000 or even $200,000? Do you know what it's like out here? I'm barely hanging on. Every time I turn around, you assholes are raising prices. And now this? You thieving pricks. And with that, I threw the phone to the ground and it shattered into 1,000 pieces. Emily came out of the house about halfway through and I was huffing and puffing and pacing back and forth like an angry dog, and I didn't see her walking up to me. And just like an angel, she touched my shoulder and whispered, "It'll be okay, Rich. We'll manage. Come on inside and I'll get you some water." God in heaven, she is my angel. I walked inside and sat down and still so angry I was shaking. "Emily, I'm going to find a way to get them back. I'm going to shove it right up their asses. What they're doing to us, to everyone, it's just not right." Sitting at the table that night, I decided that I was never going to be a victim of the power company ever again. I knew I couldn't live off the grid. Emily would never go for it. And frankly, I didn't want to. I like things like air conditioning and refrigeration. The idea of cooking on a gas grill all the time and freezing or sweating every night just wasn't very appealing to me. So I started looking into ways to generate our own power. Some of the stuff was just goofy. Things like creating a Tesla coil and reversing some of the components so it would create electricity from the ether. Tesla was working on giving everyone free power, but he was stopped by the greedy power industry once they realized what he was doing. And that has led people to claiming to know Tesla's secret to generating power. Well, here's a secret. He never finished his research, so he didn't even know how. It was an admirable dream, but it didn't come true. And other people claim to have the secret to creating a perpetual motion machine and using that to generate electricity. That was just silly. And even without an electrical degree, I could tell it was unrealistic. But solar seemed very exciting. So I started looking deeper into it. And one of the really cool things I found was that electric companies have to pay homeowners for excess power their solar arrays create and put back on the grid. That seemed like the perfect way to get back at the power company. If I could generate enough power, they'd have to pay me. I found a few solar power companies operating in my local area, and I called to get an estimate. When I saw what they wanted to install a solar array, I almost fell over. One company told me $12,387. And another company told me over the phone when I read the first estimate to them that they would do it for $10,500. And the last company came in at $14,000 even. The last guy was the best salesman. When he saw the look on my face at his price, he responded, "I know it seems like a lot. Don't worry. We finance, and your bill will be less than you're paying for your electric bill right now, especially with that emergency surcharge." Now, I may be wrong, but it almost seemed like he was charging more because electric bills were higher thanks to the surcharge. I thanked him and showed him the door. And as soon as he was gone, I turned to Emily and said, "I'm going to figure this one out myself." She looked at me like I had three heads. But seriously, I'm going to figure out how to build an array. They just cannot cost that much to build. And so I went about researching how to build a solar array that I could use for my own house. And I knew it had to be aesthetically pleasing. Emily wasn't going to go for a big old ugly thing on her roof. And I also wanted to make sure it wasn't too expensive. I mean, seriously, if it cost too much, it'd be better to have a solar company put it in and give me the warranties and all that stuff that comes with it. Most importantly, it had to work. I wasn't going to do all this work to be left with essentially a useless solar system. So I set out to learn everything that I needed to know to build and install my own solar system. Now, had I realized what I needed to know when I started, I may have decided against it. I mean, it took me every spare moment for more than 4 months to learn what I needed to learn just to build the system. And remember, I'm an accountant by training. I've built some things as a teenager like most of us, but this was an entirely different level of work. I had to learn how to determine how much electricity we used and how much a solar array could collect. I needed to learn about batteries so that I could effectively store the energy for use at night. And I had to learn how to test the solar panels before I installed them. It'd be horrible if I installed an array and it wasn't working. What an incredible waste of time and money that would be. And in addition to all the things I needed to learn, I had to get good at things like soldering and which fasteners to use where and which adhesives to use for the best results. Basically, what I'm telling you is that if I can do it, you can do it. There is no doubt in my mind. So after I spent about 4 months learning, I was ready to build my first solar project. And I'll level with you, the first project went slow and it wasn't very pretty. And you know what? It worked. But Emily told me that if I thought she was going to stand for that ugly thing on her roof, I had another thing coming. Now, she's not normally a real demanding woman, but she does have standards. And frankly, my first shot was ugly. So I went back to the drawing board, and it took 3 arrays for me to get something that looked good. They all worked. That was the easy part. For me, it was the aesthetics that made things hard. Still, with a little bit of persistence and some elbow grease, I was able to start making beautiful functional arrays. Soon enough, the ones I made looked every bit as nice as the ones the professionals install. And it wasn't long before I started getting questions from my neighbors like, "Hey, Richard, how much you got into that thing? I had a solar company come out and the price was ridiculous." Or, "Hey, Richard, how much did that save you on your electric bill? Hey, Richard, any chance I can pick your brain about how to build that? Hey, Richard, how much would you charge to put one of those systems at my house?" Eventually, it became clear to me that people needed help with solar. Power companies constantly take advantage of their customers, and there's a lot to learn if you want to do this the right way.
So in order to reach the maximum number of people, I put together USA Unplugged to show anyone how to easily and quickly build a beautiful solar system for their home and